Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really excited about my next guest. His name is Sean Connolly. Sean's a national speaker, and he's the CEO of multiple 10-figure businesses, which have generated over $90 million in revenue. Sean is the founder of Scale Virtually, a remote staffing company which helps investors build and implement proven standard operating procedures. He's also a real estate investor and oversees the flipping of more than $25 million worth of properties annually. Sean, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Benson. Thanks for having me on. I really look forward to connecting with you. We always have great conversations.
Oh, we do. We do. We were just, talking offline before we got on the podcast here, and we're just jiving about all the cool stuff we're working on. And I don't know how you do it. Like, you've got so many balls in the air, and I have to believe that it isn't just an accident that you have a virtual staffing company, right? Which is probably how you're able to have success in all these different companies. And that's how we met originally, right? So I met one of your people at an event, and they were talking about VAs. And I was like, I need a VA. And so I started talking to them. And they're like, yeah, we'll have you talk to somebody at our company. And they introduced me to you, the freaking CEO. And you actually spent time with me to help me figure out what my problems were and help me solve them. And now I've got Early on my team, who is an absolute rock star. And she is helping me with everything and helping me be more efficient, more effective, helping me stay motivated. And she's just been a great addition to the team. And I have you to thank for it.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, that's one of the great things about being in this space. We are a virtual staffing company, but what we do is so much more. It's really what I love to do is I get on the phone and I solve problems every day. And that's kind of what lights me up. I get to talk to CEOs that come to me with their biggest challenges, and we've solved almost every single property in the real estate space before. So it's just a matter of putting the framework in to help them to achieve that next level of success for their business. And it's an exciting process. You're helping people every day. So it's great to get positive feedback from you and all the other clients we have. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I mean, it was a big leap for me because we're us as entrepreneurs, we're visionaries, we're go-getters, we're typically A-type personalities, and we have trouble letting go. We want to control everything, right? I got to imagine that's one of the biggest obstacles for business owners to make that leap. Not just having an employee, but the whole virtual assistant thing is kind of a weird leap for a lot of people.
Yeah, you really touched on something that's important. So I'm a self-admitted control freak, and you saw that probably by the way that I've designed how I operate my business. Everything is got standard operating procedure. There's an org chart. There's a report up philosophy. There's SOPs and KPIs for everything. The way that the typical entrepreneur, your business is your baby, right? It's what you absolutely love. You've struggled so hard to get it to a certain level. And I know, speaking just from my experience, that I was always fearful that somebody wouldn't do it as well as me, or I would lose a client over here, or it wouldn't go as well. Well, the truth of the matter is, once you get into a certain level of scale, you have to find other people to do the work. And I knew that I wanted to make virtual staff members a core part of my strategic advantage over everybody else. I wanted to be, when I'm competing over with somebody who's paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for a role, and I could get the same role for $20,000, I can win. But what I needed to do is source somebody that's exceptional from that market. And then the thing that I realized, and this is through a lot of failures, is I hired my first 3 VAs, and I did them a disservice. I was taking in 100 phone calls a day, 100 emails a day, and I didn't have the time to really be a good manager. I didn't have anything documented. And I realized, it took me a good year to figure out that that was the flaw in the process. But then as I started developing those SOPs and I started bringing people into the organization, I started seeing a snowball effect of my businesses growing. And that was the aha moment. And then we built out an entire team of Six Sigma certified process engineers. And now that's what we do for clients today. So one of the things that's a little different about us than I would say everybody else in the space is people will come and say, hey, I need a bookkeeper. Or, hey, I need an executive assistant. Well, what I realize is if you don't have those foundational elements in place of like what they're going to do and their training in place from day one and how you're going to have meetings with them, all the fundamentals that you would want in a good business relationship, that's what Scale Virtually brings to the table. And I think that's what really differentiates us and why where there's so much, like our attrition rate is so much lower than industry average, and we provide, I would say, a much better service because at the end of the day, we need business solutions. We don't need another person stepping into our company if we're not ready for it, right? We make sure our process ensures you're actually ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really smooth the way that your team first did the interview process with me, the due diligence to figure out what problems it was I was looking to get solved. And you're right, there these process engineers really broke it down for me to help me see it systematically, where I was just kind of overwhelmed, right? And they were like, okay, well, let's chunk it out, right? What are the things you need to solve? And then they're like, okay, well, here's what you're going to solve. Let's work through this. And they helped me create the SOPs because I'm so busy that I didn't have time to go create that, but your team helped me to do that, which I
Mhm.
thought was brilliant. And then the hiring process was really cool. So once we broke out the problems that needed to be solved and what the actual tasks were going to be, they're like, okay, now we basically have uh, a job listing. We know what we need to go solve for. And then they posted that and then went through hundreds of applications to find a handful of people who were qualified to solve those solutions for me. It was
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I have an amazing team. They make me look like an all-star all day long. And, just touching on the last topic that we talked about, if you're fearful of taking that next step to hire a virtual assistant, the way that you can overcome that fear is if you have complete transparency on what that person is doing for you every day. And when there's a collaboration with you on exactly what you want to happen, just like we worked with you and said, hey, what do you want this person to do every day? How do you want them to report to you? What are their KPIs? That's not commonly done in everyday business practice, but if you do that as a foundational element, now you can be comfortable with what that person's going to do for your company because you have complete transparency into what they're doing. They're sending you a start of day report showing you what they're going to be working on that day. And then they're sending you an end of day report that shows you what they completed. So you kind of have a gauge of like what kind of value you're actually getting, what kind of impact. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to that have VAs or have had VAs and have a really bad experience. And then I ask them what kind of processes were set up, and they're like, none. And I'm like, well, where's the accountability? And they're like, well, we talk to them once a week, and it's like the foundational elements we're missing for that relationship to be successful. And that's where we make sure that those are in place from day one for you, so you don't even need to think about them. So I know that
Yeah.
that was the key thing that really changed the game for me and my company, and why we've been able to 20-30x the results that we're getting out of the different companies that I have.
Yeah. So historically, people have always thought about VAs as doing like basic tasks, right? Like really administrative sort of things, VA, right? Like, but they can do so much more, right? They can do high level problem solving tasks, sales activities, things that you might think that, oh, a VA can't do that. Like, what are some of the things that a VA can do that maybe there's some kind of like misconception out there in the space about what they're qualified to accomplish?
You nailed it. Well, if you were to think about this, I consistently hear this from our clients. Our VAs are the best, the highest production people on our team. They show up every time, they're happy, and they do great work. What you want to do is if you're going to tap into the global pool of labor, you just have to have really tight criteria. We have 15,000 people apply to work for our company on a monthly basis. Less than 1% of those make it through our funnel. So what I'm really doing is I'm extracting all the best people out of that market, but they're the best people. There's a large volume of them, but we're taking it down to the absolute best people. And we take them through a personality profile to make sure that their skill set and their personality profile both match the role. That's kind of the disconnect that a lot of people, if you don't have all that capability to go through that many people, how are you going to find the diamond in the rough? And what I hear constantly is like, yeah, I found somebody and then they referred me to 3 or 4 other people. we're not just finding somebody, we're finding the exact, like the right butt for the right seat that's very capable. And like you said, they're superstars. We're looking for the superstars to place with the companies that we work with, because then we get to create a win-win-win. We create a win for you, and that you're going to have a good long-term person. We create a win for the VA that they're working with a good company. And then, that creates a win for us where we have that long-term relationship with you as well. So,
Yeah. And so I brought in my VA/EA to help me with business type things, so that I could free myself up to do other, more like money making activities. And you were mentioning earlier that you're basically setting up like almost like a business in a box for real estate investors. What does that look like?
well, I'll give you a couple things. So what I know is when you're an investor, especially now, what's the hardest thing that we've all heard? Inventory, right? Nobody can find good deals right now. And I belong to several of the largest masterminds across the country where I'm learning from the best people. And I'm talking to guys that are doing 200-300 deals a year, and we're sharing best practices with each other. And I'm constantly refining and improving my system. And there's a lot of players in the market where you test out their service and it doesn't work. I've spent a lot of money to figure out the people that don't work, and then through the masterminds, I've been able to identify a lot of the companies that are best. And that's kind of what we've aligned our solution around, is like the best direct mailer, the best place to get your data, how you should do your search engine marketing, how you should do your Facebook. My career previous to getting into real estate, I was in online marketing for 20 years. So like I understand that market. A lot of what we do in the real estate market is more mom and pop when it comes to trying to generate deal flow with the direct to seller model. So I've had a way of really being very competitive in that space. And just to touch on your last topic, in terms of finding high level talent, um, like if you were to look at our team, like my head of process engineering is from Accenture. So you can find Inc. 500 level talent in the global marketplace that's used to the way US businesses do business. You just got to be looking for them. My head of ops is from JP Morgan Global. The person that is in charge of tech ran like a 2,000 person call center for eBay. So like we've got really high level people in my company in my strategic positions, but we're able to get them for a reasonable cost. But they're superstars. Like they know what they're doing. They're in their field and in their discipline. They're rock stars. So I feel like, if you were looking at, like, for instance, my controller is from Ernst and Young. Like I'm paying that person a fraction of what I would pay somebody from Ernst and Young here, and I'm getting the same value. So it's really identifying that in the marketplace, and we do those higher level strategic hires as well. But we more so do what everybody's used to. This just the roles of like transaction coordinator, executive assistant, marketing manager, bookkeeper. Those are the traditional roles that everybody in real estate is looking for. And then on the acquisition side, of course, like our product, the way that we're bringing it to market is like number one, I've identified the lowest cost ways to start doing acquisition. And that's what I like to start somebody out with, because you have to get good at the sales side of things first, right? Not everybody's a natural born salesperson. And in order to get good at this, it's highly competitive depending on the market that you're in. And if you don't have the right semantics, the right CRM, the right follow-up, all those things are critical to your success. And people, I talk to clients that are in a couple different masterminds of mine that they've been really successful over the last 7 to 10 years of doing it, but they haven't evolved with the space. They haven't looked at the new technologies that are coming in. They haven't refined the way that they do mail. They haven't refined their scripting. And those things have taken giant leaps in the last 2 to 3 years with how sophisticated companies have gotten, with how competitive it's gotten. And I feel like they're still using techniques that worked 5 years ago that don't work today, but we know the best practice of what works today. And that's what we will bring to the fold with any of the clients that we work with.
Got it. So yeah, lead acquisition, I mean, this is such a big part of it. And so do you have people on your team that are good at closing, that are good at sales? Is that one of the roles that you guys can help fulfill?
Absolutely. I work with two of the best coaches in the nation that kind of train my staff and help out with their clients. One of them did, thousands of deals over the last 3 years. And these guys are they're very seasoned at what they do, and they're up to date on the most advanced techniques. So that's one place. But on the VA level, what I know is most people, when I talk to people that are doing the direct to seller model, if you do not have the right processes in place, it doesn't matter what people you have in place, you won't be successful, or your success is very limited. An example is like speed to lead. If you're not on the phone with a lead that comes in right away, you're going to get beat by a guy like me, because that's a KPI that I focus on. If you're not focused on your drip campaign and your follow-up marketing, 80% of all of your deal flow is going to happen after your first interaction with that client, and it's dependent on your follow-up process. So if that's broken, you're missing out on 80% of the value that you could achieve with that lead flow. And the goal is any leads that come in is to maximize the value of them. So what is the opportunity that you have to sell that lead flow an opportunity? Can you do a fix and flip? If you're just a straight wholesaler and that's your only option, you're limiting the amount of money that you can make. I have a 100-person construction crew, right? So I can take those deals all the way down and realize all the profit in the deal. But if you can't do that, can you do innovation? Can you do a hotel? Can you, do you have an arm set up to do retail if it's not going to be your traditional deal? So it's really making sure the daisy chain of options that you have available to your sales team will maximize the value of that lead flow, because then in turn you can invest more in marketing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so many investors get so focused on one strategy, one exit strategy. Like I'm a wholesaler, right? They define themselves as a wholesaler, but most deals don't fall into the wholesale bucket. There's just not enough margin, or it's in the wrong area. And so if they don't have multiple different exit strategies, then they're passing up on the majority of the opportunities that are there. And there's so many deals that might work for like seller financing, or it's a sort of a creative deal structure. Are your team members also like apt at those kinds of strategies that are a little more creative and more complicated?
Yeah, so I would say not everybody on the team is. We have different modules for learning that. We're always actively recruiting. I mean, like with what I just stated, if you're working for a traditional wholesale company and you're a superstar, you're limited in the amount of money that you can make. But if you were to come work with us, I can open the floodgates on all those opportunities where you might only make 30%. Based on all that effort you're putting in, you're only extracting 30% of the value or revenue out of that lead flow. If I can take you to 85 to 90, now you're going to make double or triple the amount of money with the same amount of effort, right? It's just, and you're also advancing your skills, so you will know every single out in the lead. So when you talk about creative financing, we've definitely done creative financing deals. Training that is very difficult because they don't happen all that often. People are usually used to like, can we take this? Our first option is always number one, is this good enough for us to take down and do a fix and flip on it, right? If not, can we wholesale it? If not, is it a hotel? Is it innovation? Are we going to move this retail? And then last but not least is usually the part that you talked about, is creative financing. Can we take over the loan in some way at a low interest rate and then just rent the property out because we're getting it at a good discount? It's figuring all that out, but then it's like talking through all the paperwork. That's a lot. If you think about your average salesperson, selling one product is hard enough, right? And now you're going to try to train them on how to sell 5 or 6. A retail lead is simple enough, but each one of those has their own unique pitch. And seasoned vets will know how to like take them through the daisy chain and identify the right opportunity. But there's a lot of training that needs to go on in order to train somebody who's kind of new to this to do that very well.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I was up against when I was thinking about setting up a VA was the timing. Like, some people may think they need a VA because they're just lazy, right? At what point, like, what are the indicators that people should look for where they're like, okay, you are a perfect candidate to go get a virtual assistant or an executive assistant? Or are there people who just shouldn't do it because they're not ready?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say, how do you know you're ready? Number one, can you afford it? I like to say this: if you're in a leadership position, so your first hire, if you're a solopreneur, should always be an executive assistant. every single executive coaching program I've ever been in, one of the first exercises we do, if you've been in any of them, is what do? You write out everything you do for 2 weeks, and then you identify the amount of time you're spending, and then you identify the exact things that you should delegate. So that would be the process that I would recommend everybody go through. And then you can figure out how much time you can buy back by going through that exercise. And then you would, after you identify the tasks that you want to delegate, now you need to develop a process. Now, if you don't have those processes developed, if you're a solopreneur and you don't have those processes developed, that's where we collaborate with you and we build all that out for you. That's where most people find themselves, because if you're a solopreneur, are you a Six Sigma trained process engineer where you're going to make it really tight and easy for somebody to understand? And the cost that we do it at is minimal. It's a loss leader in the company compared to the value that you get. It's your IP to keep. So, in terms of income level too, we're kind of selective with the people that we work with. If you have a company where you have 4 to 5 people, you usually fit the mold of somebody that we would work with. If you're a solopreneur, we usually want you making at least $150,000 before we'll consider working with you, because it is an investment and it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of your time to get that second you up to speed. But this is the tipping point. I can tell you, when you start your first VA, the more you invest in them and the more you invest in the systems, the more you're going to get out of it and buy your time back. And Benson, this, like we were just having the conversation before. When you buy back your time, what does it give you the ability to do? Make more money. You can really do the strategic thinking in your business that you don't have the time to do because you're stuck in the weeds in the admin level work. And I like to say this: you're doing your business a disservice if you make, let's just say, $50 to $100 an hour, right? If you calculate it and you make $50 to $100 an hour, and you're doing work that you could pay $11 an hour for, you're completely, like, that's just not a logical decision. So we'd be looking at how much of that work needs to get done in your business. And this is the other thing that I would recommend. And this is how I thought about it, and I realized the flaw in my thinking. When I first started, I was like, well, I want to make sure I'm getting the maximum value out of my VA. I'm an efficiency crazy person where I want to make sure I'm efficient with everything I do. I'm maximizing the value of every part of my business. But that was really the wrong way to think about it when I didn't have enough work potentially for them to do. But what quickly happened is, as soon as I was able to document all this stuff and got like the 4 to 5 hours of work off my plate, which we do with email. So I got email off my plate and I got answering my phone off my plate. And we do a phenomenal, I'd say best in class job at doing that. Imagine if you didn't have to open every email and somebody had already gone through all your email, categorized it, responded in a templated version to stuff that normally comes in, and then updated your calendar with everything and sent the reports to the different people in your department, and then just gave you an update on it. You could buy back 3 to 4 hours of your time. And now what can you do at that time? And by the way, not only that, but for me, the my quality of life went up tenfold, because I wasn't this stress ball walking around with way too much to do, with knocking out every single task, constantly in a frenzy, and honestly portraying that to the company, which didn't look like I was an in control leader, right? Because I just had too much coming in at the same time. It gave me the time to sit back and really start thinking about the strategic vision of the company and creating something bigger for everybody, and then delegating all that work to that person. I will tell you, we have a best practice recommendation of, if you are hiring a VA, you should be with that person for the first, at least 2 to 3 hours for their first month, because you're going to cover about 80% of the nuance that happens within that first 30 days. And then that person is also, you've built a relationship with them. Now they have a comfort level with you. Now they want to do well for you. Now you've got, if you've lived up to your core values and you're building a strong culture, you've really invested in that person. They're going to feel that and they're going to want to do well for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a VA that I've had for a couple years now. And she was just helping with small little tasks for a while. And I've kept her on for a while, not really knowing what I was going to have her do, but I would just give her things here and there. And I probably didn't get a good ROI on her. But just recently, she sent me an invitation to her wedding. Like, that she's like, I'm so grateful, for the work you've given me over the years. And she's like, I know you probably can't come. She's in the Philippines, but I wanted to give you a wedding invitation because we think of you as family. And I was like, that's so cool that like, we've built a relationship, and I was able to like provide for her and her family, even though I didn't always know what it meant, but so much so that she thought that it was important enough for me to be invited to her wedding.
I've had similar experiences to that, and I can tell you the people in the Philippines are known as like the kindest people on earth. And when I started my first couple hundred interviews hiring people, my question would always be, what drives you? 99% of the people that answered that question were my parents, my family. They're a
Mhm.
very family-oriented culture. Values matter to them. Doing good matters to them. Being kind. Filipinos will do nothing to offend you. They just want to make sure you're happy. So they're an absolute joy to work with in that way.
Yeah, I found that to be the case as well. Is that primarily the region of the world that you work with is from the Philippines, or have you tested other places or tried other countries?
We have. So we operate in both the Philippines and in Latin America, specifically Mexico and Colombia.
Hmm, okay. Um, why not other areas? I don't want to get controversial here or political, but is there anything you can say that like, you know, why you chose one area over another?
When I first started the company, I had a good team that I started with, and they already had been doing this for 10 years over there. So like they had a lot of reps, they knew the market. And from an ops side, the only thing I needed to really do was the marketing and the sales of the company and start in financing it. They had the ops side down. So that really helped me launch the company quickly. When you move into new markets and you're hiring from different locations, there's a lot of different logistical challenge, legal challenges to learn, and then cultural as well. So when you're hiring, it's like a whole nother infrastructure that you have to have in my experience. There's a whole nother infrastructure that you got to set up with new hiring managers, new people to manage that. So there's the cultural piece is kind of aligned, because if you have people managing Filipinos managing people from Mexico, and it doesn't always work out that well. Like culturally, they're very different. And we have just found like separating those teams makes a lot of sense. From a leadership level, we still have leadership in the Philippines and both in the US. But what I found is it's just a little more complicated when you are moving into multiple geographies. I would also say language barrier is another one, depending on where you're hired from. Like I'm not going to make any comments, but I would say there's certain accents that are just more pleasant to the ear as Americans, and those are the ones that we try to provide for, just so it's a better fit for our client base.
Got it. That makes sense. So you've got multiple businesses that you're operating, and I've heard you say before that like you only work like a couple hours a week in each of these companies. Like, can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, no joke. I've traveled 16 weeks internationally this year, and I wanted to make 2024 best year ever. I coach all my kids' sports. The way that I did it is it's really a mindset. Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, Who Not How. I read that book years ago, and I kind of made it. I always knew I wanted to be in real estate because I wanted to be a good dad. I wanted to have time freedom. I wanted to have financial freedom, and like you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And that's what you're kind of here. Ironically, I'm going to be speaking at the same conference with Robert Kiyosaki, Ken McElroy, coming up with the Limitless event at the end of the month. So like my dreams are being fulfilled there, right? Like that to me is like I'd say the pinnacle of the industry. So I'm really excited to be doing that. But back to how I've been able to do that, it's really developing the right people, investing in the right processes. And when I build a model, I think about all the pieces of the model. So when I go to build a company now, I don't go and say, what am I going to do in this company? I'll say, what needs to be done in this company? Who do I need to hire to do it? And what do I need to do to support them so that they can do a really good job? So it's just a different level of, my framework for thinking I'd say been enhanced and advanced over time to that's how I think about things. Now I'm buying companies. So I bought a company last year. I'm looking at buying another company this week. And I'm buying leadership teams to add more capabilities to my team. And then I'm also looking for the people that are going to run those companies, because I can't run anything more, but it's building a structure that reports up to me, and it's all data driven. The one thing that I would say I'm pretty good at is looking at data for a business and then identifying where to optimize. That's what I kind of do every day in my day-to-day interaction with the clients at Scale Virtually, is say, okay, so tell me what your problem is. A lot of times people come to me with their problem and they think it's their problem, and that's not even their problem. Once I do a little bit of digging, I'll find that it's something else. But they're not aware of it. And that's kind of been the exciting part. But right now, even in my real estate business, we should do between 25 and 30 million this year. I only spend 1 to 2 hours a day in that company. And I've gone weeks with my leadership team just running it. And what I've gotten good at is finding really good people to work with and taking care of them really well, and making sure that we feel like we're all part of a family and we have a standard of excellence together. So culturally, we won a culture award at Scale Virtually, which is a remote staffing agency. How funny is that? Like, we got a culture award where people only meet with each other through Zoom. But it's due to the leadership that I have and the focus we have on like doing right by each other and being a good company, that I think has led to me finding really good people, retaining really good people, and then building a team around me that kind of reports up in the way that I like. My schedule is such that I have meetings with my leadership team where I've already developed all the reporting that I need to see from that department, and it's all KPI driven. So I have triggers and flags built in that if anything's going wrong, it'll show up in red, and then I can do a little more digging into that department or into that role to see, with whoever's managing it, hey, what's going on? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Now, one thing that I will honestly say is I do jump into the weeds, and I love solving problems in my company or in other people's companies. So I'm not the type of leader that is gonna like set it and forget it and let other people do it. I'm a very active participant in most of the departments that I oversee, which would be like marketing and sales. From an ops level, with this, Benson, just from being in the industry, we learn so much from being in these masterminds, and I love taking that information and then bringing it back to my team so we could always be in line with whatever best practices at the current point in time in business. So I've just been very fortunate with the proven systems that we have in place. I've taken, as you said, everything that they do in Scale Virtually. When I had my own company, I had them write up all the SOPs for every single thing I did. So if you need an SOP for anything in real estate, we've developed it. Whether it's leasing a property, acquisitions, disposition, maintenance coordination, collections. I've got hundreds and hundreds of SOPs that we've created, depending on what size you're at, that we can deploy to make a company better and more systematized in the way that they actually do business. So that's been the absolute game changer for me. And the exciting thing about my career right now is I'm just through Scale Virtually, I've met you. I get to meet people that are doing big things with their own companies with Privy, and I get to get excited about seeing what their growth looks like. And then I'm having really good intellectual conversations with leaders of industry with what they're seeing in the market and what's happening next and what's going on with AI. We actually just developed our first AI application in collaboration with another client, which that's so exciting to me. And by the way, I have nothing to do with it. It's my team doing all the work. Like, I had no input on that at all. It was a collaboration that we decided to do with somebody, and it's on the acquisition side. So pretty cool stuff.
That is cool. So you've got multiple companies. You've got a property management company, and you said you have a private equity firm.
Correct.
Is that how you're investing in businesses and acquiring them, is through the PE?
No, not at this time. So the PE I keep separate. That's really to buy distressed real estate in Chicago. So we're like the largest buyer at the Chicago auctions. But we have the direct to seller model that we buy beforehand, and then I have a legal team that tries to buy post auction if it doesn't go for a set price, right? So as we were talking before the call, I'm trying to get into leveraging any of the investments that I do now would be through my retirement, so that it's tax free on the investment on the way in and it's tax free on the way out. in terms of the way I'm just trying to be more strategic with the way that I'm doing that. Now, not all companies I'm going to be able to do that with, but we're for the ones that I am investing in, it would be through my own personal capital outside. And I'm bad. Like as I said, I have 5 companies right now. I'm probably only going to add, like, if you talk to any of my leadership team, they're like, please talk to us before you buy another company, please. Because when I see an opportunity, I don't sit too long. I act pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
What kind of industries excite you? Do you look for like verticals that are related to what you already do, so it's not so much of a leap to go and like move the team in? Is it like all transcendental?
Yeah, so I would say for me, I understand services businesses really well. So anything HVAC, anything plumbing, electric, like I'm looking for a good operator that I could like where I can buy that company, and I'm already doing 100 projects a year. So like
Mm,
bringing that person in my company, then I have more business to give them, not only with their existing business, so it's a good synergy there. So
yeah.
there's that. But on the marketing side, uh like that's where I bought a direct to seller company. That's what I actually bought last year. But then I realized it was only really good at SEO, so I had to add all these complementary skill sets to it with direct mail and with search engine marketing. And I've developed some amazing stuff over there. And now there's a new opportunity that we're looking at in terms of buying a company that specializes in doing Facebook. So all that is complementary to my existing piece. And from the standpoint of us working with other investors, we'll be able to bring that value to all the other investors that we work with as if they start with direct mail and they start calling on data and then they start growing and they start hitting stride and then they need search engine marketing and then they hit stride on search engine marketing, they want to try out that next strategy. We'll have all of that into a phased delivery for them so that they can continue to grow and scale their companies. So that's how I think about it and like
Yeah.
the industries that I'm interested in. In terms of AI, um, I kind of look at if you're going to spend your time on something, pick something that's gonna do well no matter what, right? But there's also that complementary piece of do what you know. And I do know I understand and can systematize service level business pretty easily. And when I see what they do, a lot of what they're not good at, like if you're looking at the older generation, the baby boomer population, what are they not good at? Technology. So if you
Hmm.
were to buy a company and digitize it and then make it more efficient with leveraging labor from the Philippines or from Mexico, you can really increase the profitability of that company. If they're not doing a good job with marketing, that's what we specialize in. So I'll go in and load up all the localized marketing that would need to be done in order for us to add that asset to the portfolio and then make it better. But what I've learned and what I've learned through mentors that are buying companies is in the first year, you try not to be that disruptive to whatever you did buy because then people leave and then you jeopardize the revenue stream.
Yeah, there's going to be a big opportunity for business buying now and in the short term because of the boomers retiring out. There's going to be a lot of service businesses that were just run the same way for the last 40, 50 years that need optimization, that they've got good books of business, good reputations, and then you could just take those and combine them all into one highly efficient technology driven firm.
100%. And there's good and bad to that though. How many times have you heard in the last 5 years of some great institution that was in your area that just went out of business, right? Because there's
Yeah.
no one around to take over the business. We've had it happen with several like great restaurants in Chicago. They're like household names in Chicago, like hot dogs closed down. And that's like everybody knew that was like one of the best places to go. It's the same thing that I hear where people are retiring and they have no kids to pass the business on to. And they just think from a leadership standpoint, they're not going to have anybody to step into that operator role. So that's where we can step in. I already have 3 full-time superintendents in my company that could kind of oversee. Like that's what gets fun once you build a larger infrastructure. You have somebody that can step into that knows it at a high level, that can still manage the people that are in place there. So uh, we'll see. I'm not, I'm just jumping into it. So I might be telling you next year, oh man, I made a bad buy, but I don't see that to be the
I
case.
can't see that happening with the way that you run businesses now and all of the success that you've had. maybe you've had some failures as well. We all do. But like because of the staffing angle and because of the way you're implementing SOPs and then just the optimization of the whole thing, like you can do that to any business and make it more profitable.
Mhm. Well, you're 100% right. I was looking at this, and what really excited me about it is thinking about, I actually get on the phone with people and we help them grow their business, and we see the case studies that we took a property management company and, quadrupled what they were doing in a matter of 18 months, right? They attributed their growth to the systems that we put in place for them to do that. And it's like, if I'm doing that for other companies, they're getting all the upside and I'm getting a VA fee on that. How can I leverage some of that knowledge and that skill set to actually buy a company and realize the full value of what we can bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just VA. It's what you said. It's really building the proven systems into that company to gain efficiency, to optimize the way they currently do things, and to kind of reinvent the company where we got great people, but we can align them with better process, right? Where they can be more efficient, where those companies can make more money and grow. So it's super exciting. I don't know what the future holds. Like, AI is a big thing that I think is going to be disruptive. And we're looking to identify the industries that are not going to be that disrupted by AI. So we have a good runway to kind of build a portfolio.
Yeah. Or like you said, you're investing in AI, right? So you're going to have complementary things because there's going to be some things that people are going to look at a VA and be like, you know what, AI can do that now, right? And so if you have another alternative already in house, right, within Scale Virtually, where you can be like, oh, well, we've got these AI components that you can implement as well. Is that part of what you're seeing is coming down the pipe?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm gonna be on a panel at IMN, and I was meeting with all the panelists beforehand, and we actually were talking about AI and how it's impacting things. And my philosophy on that is, depending on your size, AI is extremely valuable if you're a large organization. But right now, AI is not where it needs to be highly impactful for most companies. And it's because it needs to be tested. And the thing that makes AI really good is a lot of data. It's got a lot of iteration, so we can see what the optimal outcome should be and how it should be respond to it. If you have a small company without a lot of data, it's going to be very hard for AI to give you a lot of value, right? It can if it's leveraging it from what other companies have done, but that doesn't always adapt well when it comes to a real estate business. So I like to say, if you're flipping, 20, 30 properties a year, or whatever that is, AI might work really well for outreach, right? But if you're holding anything, if you have 100 properties, leveraging AI to do stuff, unless you're going through a platform, there's certain things that just aren't going to work out really well for you just due to the size of your portfolio. There's not enough data for it to work with in order to make good decision and like if-then statements on how it would process whatever opportunity came its way from
Yeah.
decision making that would need to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody, AI is coming on it, and the people that are implementing it, it's getting better and it's getting better faster. And I've seen it with my own eyes in certain spaces, maintenance coordination in different areas where it's compelling, but it's still not right and it's still not perfect. But people aren't either.
No, they're not. But I think that there's an angle there, like you said, like gathering data from proven systems, right? Like with your SOPs, right? Like you've got SOPs that will work for any real estate company, right?
Mhm.
Acquisitions, dispositions, like you could basically plug and play those. And there might be a way to build up some AI on your end that you can plug and play that come from proven systems that you can implement along with a VA type strategy. So it's like they go in tandem.
Mhm. We have a really cool thing that we're doing that it's AI with automated offers. So we've got that in the works right now. And it's pretty incredible with what it can do. We basically can mine anything that comes off the MLS within 15 minutes. And then if it fits our buy box, we can get an offer out on it right away. So there is some pretty cool stuff that's being done. It's not cheap, to do stuff like that. You got to have deep pockets to kind of get into it. but the numbers can be incredible with if you got the capital to take advantage of it. I feel like larger companies are going to benefit far more from what AI's capabilities are, because you need to have a pretty sizable investment to kind of create it. And then, for real estate, you need to have the capital to buy all the properties that it will turn over. So it just depends on where you're at in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, I have no doubt that once that really starts to get better, that you're going to be part of it in some way, just from you having your hands in all kinds of different businesses. So I'll be excited to see how that plays out. For the people that are watching this, so we're thinking, you know what, Sean's piqued my interest enough to think about implementing a VA or an executive assistant in my business. Like, what are some of the first things they should do to like really make that decision to move forward? And then if they do decide to move forward, how can they contact you to learn more, or somebody on your team?
Well, first off, we make it really easy for you. Like, our process is done for you. So if you're looking, if you're looking to do this on your own, there's definitely a way for you to get a job description ready, post it across a bunch of different platforms, be ready to interview people, know how to interview for that position. If you have a personality profile software, make sure you implement that to make sure it aligns with the role. That's what I would do outside of us. But if you're doing that with us, we provide a free consultation where you come to us with whatever your challenge is, whatever role you're looking to place for, and all the tasks you're looking to delegate. And it's simple. We will collaborate with you to build all of it out. So in order to do that, if you were to go on to scalevirtually.com and just schedule a free consultation, we'll walk you through a full demo of exactly what it looks like. You'll get to see operational procedure and how we do everything that we do. And Ben said, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but like what we do on the executive assistant level, in the level that we can create process for you and output for you, it really takes your business to another level. I can speak for what we've done for my companies and what I see us doing for other companies. It's almost like a no-brainer. If you were to come to us with your biggest business challenge, you get a free 45-minute consult on exactly how we would go about solving that challenge in your business, whether it's hiring a leasing coordinator, a marketing person, a salesperson. We have so much expertise to bring to you of what's like best practice in the industry. It'll definitely be one of the most valuable phone calls you have all month. So, in terms of that, my email address is Sean@scalevirtually. And then our website is scalevirtually.com. You can sign up for a free consultation right there.
Amazing. And we'll put a link in the show description too, for anybody that just wants to click through. And just to reiterate too, I know firsthand the impact that your company has made on my business, and the amount of time it's freed up for me to be able to have, kind of visionary thoughts about what's next for my company, other things that I want to do. I told you about being able to travel to events and do some things that I just didn't allow myself to do because I was in control of everything. Right. So I want to personally thank you for changing my life, really. And the way that I'm living it now, I'm happier. I'm not as stressed out. I'm getting better sleep. My relationships are better. And it was just a result of really just taking work off my plate and feeling good about handing that off to somebody who I know isn't going to go screw it up.
Thank you so much. Honestly, this is one of the things that I love most about being involved with this company is I get to have this type of conversation every week because I get calls with the same people telling me the same stuff. And it's really nice to know that we can definitely change your business, as you stated, and help you grow and scale your business. But what about helping you achieve your goals and your dreams that really opens up your ability to live your personal life at that highest level and give you that time and financial freedom? Because how many of us never reach that because we're too caught up in the weeds? I love being able to gift that to other people, and I love that my team gets to do that. And that's a big thing we talk about. Like, hey guys, we're actually changing people's lives. It's their personal. I've had a grown man cry on the phone with me that said he went on his first vacation in 5 years with his family, and he has breakfast with them every day. And that would have never been possible without the people that we put in place and the systems that we put in place. So I appreciate that. And this is a really feel good place to be for me. in terms of delivering a lot of value to the marketplace. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sean. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Please reach out to Sean. I personally know him. I've met him. We've hung out. He's a really good guy. His team is amazing. My VA early has been just a godsend for me, and I know it'll make a difference in your business too. So make sure to check that out. Appreciate you guys listening. Sean, thank you for taking the time to spend with me, and just kind of letting us look behind the curtain to see what you're working on and all the cool things you're doing over there at Scale Virtually. Thanks again.
Anytime. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.